broken anti-aggro tools to swing the game back. Because there isn't really the possibility of playing the matchup any other way, right? It used to be with 8-mana Giant and with Fast Quest, you could actually counterpunch sometimes with Flesh Giants, right? You could get them down quick enough to still win the game. That's just not realistic anymore in any way, so it does really feel like that's the only win condition. Clear board, down to 10 cards, get the anti-aggro cards, and just swing the board that way. Ultra Fire is a great card in helping you do that. Without it, you do have to rely a lot more heavily on Soul Rend doing the same thing, and Xbylize here with the Soul Rend in his opening hand already has some decisions to make.
And it's one of the reasons, just as we get into the mulligans, where I wanted to highlight the Giant and the Battleground Battlemaster, because now after all these nerfs, people still playing Handlock, it really does seem like the Wind Fury is the go-to way to win games now. Whereas I feel like when Giants were coming down a little bit earlier, yes, you could play it on curve with Battlegrounds, of course, but like it feels like it's much more reliant on that burst damage than it has been in the past, so we'll see how it goes. But let's dive into game number 1. Hunter versus Warlock, first game of the European Grandmasters playoffs. xBlyzes in his void, as always, and Bunnyhoppor just in his nice place, I guess. Wolpertinger with...
Well, that didn't go anywhere, did it?
Well, it's just a nice place. I've got nothing for it. There's a Hearthstone puzzle that has been built and framed in the background, so bonus points for that, I suppose.
Nice.
Oh yeah, the strongest play you can make. Elmore on 2.
Oh, they've been so bad. Like, sometimes as a caster, you do just get lucky. Like, I threw this out there as, like, just a general thing. Felmors have seemed underwhelming. They just seem a little bit slow in certain matchups. A lot of minions. A lot of other decks play kind of very annoying minions, or Guardian Orc Merchant, for example, is a big force in the metagame right now. So irritating Divine Shields. Libram Paladin's coming into the game, which introduces Goody 2 shields. Like, I just kind of threw it out there as, like, maybe Felmor kind of sucks now. Ever since I've said that, every Felmor that we've seen in Grandmasters has been absolutely terrible, along with every single Felmor in every one of our test games that we've played as well. Like, it's been uncanny.
At least some of mine went face, okay? That's all you ask.
True.
Well, there's going to be another one here for Bunnyhoppor, as I doubt he's going to prioritize just the Demon Companion and Hero Power. But it is good, because it will actually dodge a potential Soul Rend on curve as well. Oh my god, he's not going to do it. Okay.
Yeah, good timing here. I love this. Coin Soul Rend, not particularly punishing here whatsoever.
Haven't heard of me.
Coin, Coil, and... Oh no, he's going to go touch. He's going to grab the healing while he can.
Yeah, I like this, I think. This makes the most sense. Good timing on all fronts, right? Because he gets a big heal, he goes all the way back up to 30, and now there is just that irritating 1-3 in the way of this Felmor. Goes face, which in this situation is much worse for Bunny, because he now has no way to kill a Tamsin. Okay, he's picked it up off the top, but now he has to spend his whole turn using Piercing Shot, or just leave a Tamsin alive on the other board.
I don't mind the piercing shot here. Normally, Warsong Wrangler is exactly what you're looking for on curve, and it is unfortunate he can't get it. Oh wait, he could get it and pick Wolpertinger and trade, right?
He could do that, yeah, that's true. That is an option that I wasn't even looking at.
But my main point is, because he has Barret Kodo Bane, he has a great turn 5 play anyway, right? He's not looking for a guaranteed Rhino next turn. So he can choose, you know, either or here, Piercing Shot or Warsong into Wolpertinger. The problem with the Wolpertinger play is he might actually want the buff Giants a little bit later on, because Xbylize will want to be playing something on board, you would imagine, this game, and the initial minions are looking like to be being those the neophytes, tour guides and such, if he doesn't kill them off himself. So it does open him up for Rhino capabilities going forward.
Is it going to be the Tinger? It is.
Yeah, he has to.
Okay. Yeah, make the trade happen. It's a little bit weaker to the Soul Rend, I would say, than the Piercing Shot line, but of course your opponent is entitled not to have the Soul Rend, at which point you're probably winning the game immediately with this kind of play, because 4 mana, 6 cards, Warlock removal probably isn't going to be able to do too much against this, and then you follow it up with just a ton of damage from the Barret Kodo Bane, which, you know, at minimum draws you like 12 damage over the course of the game when you get to spend your mana on it, right? As we saw Possessi forget some reason, even though it's one of the most common things in the game.
Well, that's going to take some time off. Okay. I'm going to go for the soul rend. And this is one of the reasons, like, that, yes, you do not want to be soul rended, but as Hunter, they do almost pass their whole turn, right? And especially if you set it up as well as Bunnyhoppor has to guarantee 5 damage to face if Soul Rend does come down, then you just plays Kodo Bane after. Yes, Xbyzes is burnt 3 cards from his deck, which is a positive, killed off the initial minions, but it's a whole turn. He's not drawn any cards to actually use. He's not played any minions himself, so I do actually like Xbyzes holding on to this. And now the big question for Bunny.
Really interesting. Because he can actually continue to shut his eyes and not play around Soul Rend, right? Which is like Mankrik Wolpertinger. He could just say, I want all the damage in my hand right now, right? Even saying, like, I don't necessarily want a Mankrik's wife from my barrack. I want an aim shot. Aim shot is technically a little bit more damage than the Mankrik. Or there's the halfway play, which is probably the one I was leaning to the most and the one that Bunny ended up doing, which was just to play the Mankrik, get the wife in the deck, and just weave in the hero power to lean a little bit further towards damage and a little bit further away from board to mitigate the punish of that Soul Rend on the other side as well.
I like this. I like what Bunny did the most by far, because you get the extra benefit of the, yes, the wife doesn't do as much as an aim shot, but it pushes 3 and it still draws an additional card if you hit it. So it's still a benefit. He did get double aim shot instead, which probably was looking for that wife for that extra instant damage, but look at his hand right now.
Yep.
Could actually play Wolpertinger for... Yeah, he's got a lot of mana to spend, hasn't he? But there's options where he can play Wolpertinger for the most initial board presence now and still have Demon Companion Piercing Shot if he needs it, if he feels like he needs to hold on to something.
Quickly.
He's also wondering whether he wants to open up second touch options as well.
Yeah, I do still like making boards here, because as long as your opponent is fully occupied with clearing boards, then they are not going to be doing what they need to do right now, which is turboing through their deck as quickly as possible to get to bristlebacks. Because the odd Drain Soul or the odd touch here and there to kill the odd minion, I don't think is going to matter significantly, right? Because of the lack of Tammy 1 at this point, right? It's just not going to be enough healing. There's not going to be a big burst heal in one turn. So as long as you're occupying Bly's turn, I think you should be fine to just then get through all these chip damages.
I actually like aim shot, quick shot, hero power here. How much is that? 10. Put Bly's to 1. I like it.
Denies the tap means that he has to play a minion himself if he wants to shoot it with any healing.
Just ticks all the boxes, and it's not as if it's, oh, he needs to not heal or I lose. Look at Bunnyhoppor's hand. He has another aim shot hero power. He has the piercing shot with a 1-drop if he really wants it or needs it. Like, he's got so much damage, you may as well put him to 1.
So the alternate question then, is it better to go like Initiate Wolpertinger aim shot hero power? Because you can still then fit in an aim shot, quick shot hero power on the following turn, but you're also front loading with minions. You know, pros, you have some damage on board. Cons, you are then creating targets for your opponent to just shoot healing spells out on the other side. And also not denying the life tap, which is the most relevant thing overall.
Yeah, I like this. Just no targets for healing, puts them to 1, makes Xbyzes have to work very hard this turn to even be safe now. That is just going to be the tap. It's the heal. Yep.
Yeah, he gets the quest reward, so he is still alive. He did get to tap there looking for Bristleback specifically, I would imagine. But nothing doing.
No.
Going to be enough healing. Not enough juice for Xbyzes to get himself out of this one.
Yeah, he can't draw from the coil in any way either, which means there's no chance for him to even dig a Bristleback, even if he had the mana. Yep, not looking good.
Trying to work out significant differences between playing a taunt, whether playing a minion at all ever comes back to bite him in this position. Certainly has to play something because he needs to get a race on himself, but in the end he is just going to go for a taunt here just to play around a couple of niche outs. Not going to matter though, because the damage is locked and loaded with second aim shot to be able to lead this out 1-0. And that's just kind of how this matchup stands, is that Xbyzes is going to have to face against kind of 55 to 60% favorables from Bunnyhoppor's side all series, basically no matter what he queues into what, because Bunnyhoppor in his opening matchup has just kind of hit the dream lineup for a first opponent here coming up against xBlyzes.
Yeah, it looked really strong, didn't it? And you can see there that, you know, xBlyzes had both Soul Rends, didn't really make much of a difference. The big thing for me was he just didn't get those Bristlebacks, which are for me like really the cards that made the difference. And as you mentioned, no Altar of Fire. Maybe that could have got him there a little bit quicker, got him a little bit deeper through the deck as well. So we'll have to see how it plays out now in game number 2, sorry. Warlock from xBlyzes once more, and Bunnyhoppor's jumping over to his Paladin. And this is a bit more of a slower, more, you know, less frantic matchup than this one.
It is ever so slightly, yes, but you know, once again, the matchups are tricky throughout for xBlyzes. I do think in that instance as well, just going back to the Altar of Fire thing, the transition was so perfect there for Bunny. Like on the exact right turn, he transitioned, or his hand had transitioned for him from board-based aggro to just hand and burn-based aggro. That at that point, like even Altar of Fire into Bristleback probably wouldn't have done anything, because that's kind of what shuts down a board push, right? You kill a minion, you get a big heal, you create a tempo swing. There was nothing really there for the Bristleback to even heal against in that position, right? Because the damage was coming purely from hand at that point. But we will move on now to the much maligned Libram Paladin, Raven. Much maligned by who, you say? Well, everyone, apart from the Grandmasters who keep bringing them, apparently, because this deck has not been overly successful for basically anyone that has brought it into Grandmasters. It's been hovering somewhere around a 30 to 35% win rate throughout most of Grandmasters up until this point. I know Gia and Derek were talking about how in APAC they just hadn't seen it win up until one of the very last games that they saw on the broadcast today. They just had not seen it win on broadcast at all in the APAC region. It's a big, big question mark of a deck that I still just naturally, my initial reaction to it is this deck sucks. Bunnyhoppor's going to lose because he has Libram Paladin in his lineup, and it's only kind of the cohesive strategy that his lineup presents that is saving him from me giving, you know, that damning condemnation, because I do think holistically his lineup does make sense in terms of the matchups he's trying to win. But you know, on paper, Libram Paladin wins some of these matchups. We just haven't seen it happen. Like, where are these wins, Raven?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. It's a weird deck. It feels out of place in the current meta, because the only broken thing it does, or the only like really strong thing it does, in my opinion at least, is just have those Libram of Hopes, right? Not only are you healing a lot for potentially cheap, especially with the help of an Aldor Truthseeker, you can see in Bunnyhoppor's opening hand, but also you can regenerate them, right, with the Lady Liadrin, and that's when I've been testing this deck. That's where the decks felt strong, is in the slightly slower matchups where you actually just outvalue anyone with just the relentless endgame, the relentless healing, the relentless pressure on board. So we'll see how it pans out here, but I am with you. On paper, Bunnyhoppor looks good, but in practice, Paladin has not proved itself quite yet.
And just to give you one example of what's going on here, like this matchup that we're facing right now, high-level ladder stats, top 1000 legend, Libram Paladin versus Handlock, 55% favored for the Libram Paladin. In Grandmasters, that exact same matchup, 8-0 to the Warlock. And I know, like, that includes stats from before Warlock got nerfed multiple times, right, in some instances, but 8-0 in a supposedly 55% favored matchup. What is happening to Paladin in Grandmasters, Raven?
Stop asking me questions I don't have the answers for, Sottle, because I can't explain it. It does seem quite odd. Already, though, here, Bunnyhoppor has a choice, Aldor Attendant into Libram of Wisdom, or he could potentially value the cycle, because there are some solid 3-drops you are looking for as Paladin in the early game. So he could have spent that mana instead of on a +1/+1. He could have traded the City Tax and maybe got the Banana Man, maybe got a Goody 2 shields and so on. But Bunnyhoppor's just a god and rips it anyway.
Just an absolute hero among men. Banana Man on curve, turn 3. unlike Gia, actually remembered to draw some minions in the early game as well, which is a very big deal. Gia was drawing Banana Man every game in testing, but had 4 spells in her hand every single time. That did not work out particularly well for her overall, but Bunny here does have a pretty solid hand to be getting on with. That Devout Pupil as well, I think, is a nice little addition to the deck. It's not in every version of Libram Paladin, but I think it is becoming extremely common now. Just as, again, an extra Taunt and an extra Divine Shield minion that you can pick up from Varian, if not anything else, because it doesn't seem to get super cheap super quickly from what I've seen, but this hand from Bunny is now the kind of draw that can make it happen.
Yeah, I agree. Another Libram, so he's got both there, of course. No silence in xBlyzes deck or transform effects, so those Librams are here to stay. I will imagine we see the tradable on the city tax, though. If he had a Libram of Justice, then I can... Oh, okay. I can imagine the want to keep hold of it. If you see those giants, if you see a Netheron come down, maybe that's worthwhile. But in general, I like the trade, and he does get the tech card. The Crossroads Watch Post that we're seeing in a fair few decks this week, just to try and put a bit of a stopper on some of these spell-heavy decks.
Yeah, and I think this, I suppose this is as good a time to talk about it as any. I think it will have, you know, a decent effect potentially on this matchup, even if it even gets that far, rather, because he might just kill him before Crossroads Watch Post even gets anywhere with the rate he's going at the moment. But I think the main addition of this card coming into a lot of people's decks, and certainly one of the big reasons behind it in Bunny and Alan's lineup, is to improve that Demon Hunter matchup significantly, right? Because if you build an early board and then curve into Crossroads Watch Post against Demon Hunter, this happens to the Demon Hunter player every time. They look at it, they think, yeah, I can probably clear this board. You can't. It's impossible.
No.
It just doesn't happen. I think it's an absolutely brutal card against Demon Hunter. And as I said, I was having a bit of an argument with Bunnyhoppor about whether some of his decks are favored against OTK Demon Hunter. I do certainly think the addition of Crossroads Watch Post is helping him secure his point, secure the strategy of the decks that he has overall.
Here, though, Blyze is going to have to face down this 7-9. He does have the Null plus any removal he really wants to deal with the rest of it here.
More bones to gnaw on.
Gonna go second Null, raise dead Null. That works, right? There's one tour guide, I think.
Cards in hand.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Looks good to me. He is on 11 health, but again, one of the positives about playing against Paladin is they can't burst you in any real way if they have no board, right? There's no good way. The Libram weapon isn't really being used by a majority of players. So there's no real fear of a lot of damage coming out from hand.
Let me think.
This is a really slightly awkward turn here as well, because you could go, for example, Watch Post Hero Power, Libram, and then your Devout Pupil would cost 0, and you can just play the Devout Pupil. But where do those Librams go in that play? Because putting them on the Watch Post. Yeah, putting them on the Watch Post seems a bit silly because, you know, it's not always a minion that actually gets killed. Putting them on the 1/1 is okay, but what this means is that you're then playing a Devout Pupil as a 4/5, which means it's getting directly challenged still by the Null on the other side if there's something to remove a Divine Shield. Whereas, you know, spending mana on the Devout Pupil and then buffing the Devout Pupil kind of protects it a little bit more, but I do think this is just the most efficient play overall.
Yeah, the Devout Pupil is buffed. And
it's already Banana Man buffed.
And also, I will just say, although it would trade evenly, well, if something removes a Divine Shield, it's probably a spell. Which means then it would gain the +1/+1, right?
That's fair.
Even if it wasn't buffed, it would go above the Null, so it would have to be spell, trade, spell. And I think that's why at least one on the Watch Post or Watchtower is really clutch, because otherwise, exactly that we can see in hand, Unstable Shadow Bolt plus like a touch would actually kill it, right? Because it would actually overkill or equal the damage.
Yep. Doing it this way, though, means same thing, a source of 6 damage that does not buff the post. Means he can do it with the Bristleback instead and then finish it off with the touch. But yes, I absolutely agree with you. Now I'm not being a complete moron. I think Bunny's distribution of Librams was pretty much perfect there to beat major breakpoints from his opponent. Very smartly done in the end.
Okay, that's a good draw. Libram City tax this away. He pushes what? 10? 11 with the weapon swing?
11 if the weapon does want to go through, yeah. But he is looking like he's just going to save it. This is a lot of Libram power, right? You can just trade the 6/6 through immediately anyway. These Librams just refund into your hand and you get the thickest Divine Shield taunt of all time out of it as well. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess this... Yeah, I actually underestimated the amount of Librams that would be available this turn already. It's not often you see this many on curve. But of course, Bunnyhoppor had one very early Libram, and the second one joined the game very shortly as well.
It's just 7 more, 15 in the end, I think, right? Going face.
And suddenly, the 3/3 lifesteal from the Bristleback doesn't look that scary, does it?
I was just about to say, it's not often in this metagame where you get to play big enough minions where you can just willingly ignore lifesteal on board, and like, this is absolutely it. 15, 16 Divine Shield taunt. Nice 3/3, idiot.
Nice once again. Backed into a corner. He does have...
Ooh, does
have play. He also has Tamsin double unstable Shadow Bolt, which makes up a lot of this missing damage he needs to kill this Devout Pupil.
It really does, yeah. Not going with the Bristleback this turn.
Can still coil.
6/6, 3 and 1. Yeah. That's actually perfect. But I do believe the taunt coming down will get equality taxed away, or just equality weaponed away. All these Librams stack. Equality tax?
I just love it. Yeah, equality tax, equality Libram. It's not Libram of anything else. It's not Libram of justice. It's just equality with a weapon stuck on the end of it.
Correct. Yep. Libram of big weapon, Libram like, of +1/+1.
It's like the picture of the crab with the knife. It's just equality holding a knife.
Yes. Yeah, no. Absolutely true.
That is true.
Yeah,
Bunnyhoppor. Oh, go on.
I was gonna say, even though he had about the best possible response to that giant minion, right? Like, most Warlock hands even cannot kill a 16, 17 health minion, whatever that ended up being, 16, I think. Even though he had the answer for it, I think that's what made Bunny's play on the previous turn so good. Like, my initial instinct, I'll happily confess, was the same as yours, that I think, again, because we've been frustrated in testing by City Tax in a lot of positions, we both got excited by a turn where City Tax looked good. But Bunny recognizing that he did not need to use it, and more so, having that card as the final checkmate was just so clutch in this position, right? Because it meant he had all bases covered. Even if a big taunt came down, he was always going to be able to land a big minion going face with all of those recycled Librams.
Yeah, it was. It's really, really strong overall, and I really like the way that he also just made it so unlikely that his Liadrin was killed as well. Even if Blaze could kill the huge minion, the Liadrin couldn't be killed off. And as always, the big problem with late game Paladin is if you leave a minion on board and you know they have Librams, well, that gets to swing, right? Like, the main goal is to actually keep that board clear once you know Paladin's got a handful of Librams. I have no clue where the key cards have gone. I definitely thought I did it. But most importantly, I'll highlight some key cards for this Quest Rogue here. I was playing it.
You nailed it. There are no good cards in Quest Rogue. You did perfectly. This is exactly what I was expected. Yeah.
But yeah, the key thing that we're looking for, of course, is the SI card, so Skull Cooperative Agent, and the Watch Post, one of you can see in there. And also, this is one of the times where I've actually liked... I've never really been a fan of Scab's Cut About the 4-drop, and when I was practicing with this deck, I did actually like it, just because you can make those big tempo plays. But for me, and I think you'll agree, one of the key cards in this deck is actually Secret Passage. Like, whenever I had one, it felt like so powerful, and whenever I didn't, I was wishing I had one, because being able to just play a Secret Passage and dump out an extra wave of minions is so powerful if your opponent is playing the more removal style game.
First off, bit of housekeeping does need to be done before we get into this. Libram Paladin just beat Warlock. That's earth-shattering in Grandmasters. It's now Warlock is now no longer undefeated in that matchup against Libram Paladin. But yes, I agree with you 100%. Like, listen, Quest Rogue is a linear deck in the sense that it just wants to curve out, play SI cards, play the quest reward, hope that kills you, right? Like, that's pretty much the game plan. Sometimes you can just draw SI, go through your quest very smoothly. Most of the time, that isn't going to happen. So I think the most important thing about this version of the deck is that it goes a little bit heavier on card draw and a little bit less heavy on burn, right? Like, Wicked Stab is a deck that was originally in Quest Rogue that's not being played anymore, and instead we're seeing Swindle, Greyheart Sage, and Secret Passage all thrown in there on top of a couple of tradables as well. And that allows you to dig and cycle super hard on those turns where you brick and you don't just hit the perfect curve of SI cards overall. So I do think it's a build that has improved a little bit over time. But for me, this is staggering to say in a series that involved Libram Paladin, but for me, this is the biggest question mark in Bunny's lineup, and I think it's very fitting that we've come down to this as the last deck to win with for Bunny, because this is the one that I have the most doubts about as to whether it actually fits into his strategy against the decks that he's supposed to be favored against. Because even against Handlock in, you know, Bunny stats that he showed me, this matchup was unfavored. It's kind of one of the few weak links that he has in his overall strategy against the decks that he's trying to look at. Warlock is a slight favorite in this matchup, even from his perspective, which is a lot more optimistic than mine.
You can see here Bunnyhoppor starting off with the Spy Mistress skipping the quest for now, because again, the quest wouldn't get procced anyway, so he may as well give himself some time before he needs to equip it, rather than having a 3-1 on the board. I do like options now though as well. Shadow Step, normally something you need to save for the quest progression. Does have options of actually activating the Swindle this turn, or he could just take it slow and play the quest along with Extortion, the 1-1, and go face, for example?
He could also dagger. Do you remember the dynamic? Yes! Do you remember the dynamic that we had a couple of seasons ago where we would sit and debate for minutes during Bunnyhoppor's turn, where he would be roping in classic Bunnyhoppor fashion, and no matter what play we suggested, all Bunny would end up doing was dagger pass. And he'd like have 7 mana in some positions, and that's just all he'd end up doing. I just knew it. I just knew it in the fibre of my bones.
Bit of a shake of the head as Xbylize is able to kill off the Spy Mistress, something that's not always a given.
Yeah. I think his mood very quickly elevated though with that Fox's Swindle draw. And now finally quest does come down, no harm done. No quest procs wasted, and this is kind of what I was talking about, right? Like, sometimes you just don't draw the SI cards, and that's where I think this version of the deck is just a little bit more stable than some of the other ones that we've been seeing.
Right. He's having a great start though, just having all the removal required. Now Bunnyhoppor can actually activate his first proc of his quest if he wants, and there are a lot of those gadgets that are actually 1-drops as well, so... Wouldn't be
the gizmo is here. Probably minions, the 2 minions are the ideals in this situation. Does pick it up. Debate as to whether or not to use the Shadow Step for quest progression here as well. I do think with 2 stealth minions in play, it's at least seeing 1 more card for Greyheart Sage in this position before you make any commitments.
Yeah, I think the 1-drop minions were good, and I think you're never unhappy at the sort of sap card, if that makes sense, right? Because that's just good, especially against a bit of a clunky deck like Handlock. But yeah, I think if Xbylize Soul Rends this board, then Bunny's probably still a little bit happy about that. So yeah, I like no Shadow Step here.
You here for the tour?
Pretty rare guaranteed TAMs in that, wasn't it?
It was. Oh, ho, ho. Okay. All right, Bunny. I see you.
So
I see why you think this deck's playable.
Now, do you attack with Mole first anyway?
Probably, yes.
'Cause there's no loss, right? You have Infiltrator or whatever that one's called. I lose track, even though I've played this deck. Skulker, sorry. You have Skulker stealthed anyway, so Greyheart Sage is always active.
Other way around.
Then draw.
Also works. Yeah.
Yeah, you can replay then draw, right?
Yep.
Interested is he what's he doing with this Mole?
Wow. Pretty solid.
Okay.
Okay, that's pretty funny. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think I would have had a look in the mole first, just in case that changes the play. I don't think anything that really happens there with sequencing changes the play significantly, but you do kind of get into these pedantic arguments sometimes, right, about what's technically optimal, and I think you were probably right.
Oh, okay. Is he going to play?
Nah, he holds, yeah. I don't think he's done any due diligence in terms of testing for Soul Rend, right? So I think it is just a little bit brutal to be throwing out another rendable minion.
You could play it to make sure they don't draw it next.
You can, that is true.
Suddenly, looks like a very Soul Rendy looking turn. xBlyzes just can't quite fit in everything he wants to, I think, this turn. He's very close, but not quite there, so I think he does have to commit this Soul Rend. This does push him down to 12 cards, which is very much not far away from getting those Bristlebacks active.
Yeah, and he has a 0 mana life tap stored as well, so he'll draw to 11, tap to 10 for 0 mana next turn already.
I wonder.
Imagine Bunny will be looking.
Here.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I like the card. It's just, it can, with the extra card draw in the deck, it can really make silly things happen. We can...
Little bit short of any disgusting Shadow Step plays with the Scabs, because Scabs will still cost 2 after the Shadow Step is going to come down. Good decision on the ordering, going Swindle first after the Scabs, because obviously you can find a higher value card to play as your second discounted card instead of the Skulker, which he did kind of find with the SI7 agent. The thing is, the cards that he drew off the Swindle, he is keeping with his current hand as well, though, so he is still somewhat incentivized to play the Skulker in that spot, because now the SI7 agent goes back to his hand instead.
More bones to gnaw on.
Okay. Xblyzes got his tap, 10 cards or less for him. He's going to start fighting back, and these are the power turns for Warlock, and quite early, honestly, in the game. Turn 6, Xblyzes gets to have something pretty strong to do. But now, let's have a look. Oh, he's just a little bit off, right?
Of what?
Oh, wait. I'm just working out if he can get his quest reward down, but I think he can, right?
Yeah, he's one away. Like, he just has to play a card and then play it if he really wanted to do that, yeah.
Yeah, I just meant mana-wise without the Foxy. I was looking at if there's other ways to do it, but he can activate this, right? But he could have done it with the Assassin.
Yeah, he could have just played Assassin, played Scabs, but he wouldn't have had any mana for Stealth and all that kind of stuff anyway, so I think delaying it for one turn is fairly reasonable.
Target eliminated.
Loading up now, going in, and this Spiomatic is always the brutal one. I felt this in the Demon Hunter matchup as well, because when you're playing Demon Hunter, it doesn't matter what your hand is. Once you've got Kurtrus down, you always have this feeling of like, okay, whatever, like play your sick turn with your Scabs and all of your gizmos. I don't really care. I'm just going to, even if I don't draw the Immolation Aura off the top, I'll draw Acrobatics or Spectral Sight off the top and then cycle through my whole deck for 0, like whatever. And they just play Spiomatic and just make you draw like nothing next turn, like I-Beam next turn, you know, oh, okay, well now I'm dead.
We gave him
Money.
Backfire. Okay, it's a lot of mana to spend on card draw.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we just give him the Giant.
Giant would have cost 0 in any reasonable world where this board gets cleared if it doesn't already cost 0, so I think that might have been a lost condition. Well, I kind of agree with the backfire overall, right? Like 10 cards is already active, like what's a backfire doing for your opponent at this point, I would say.
Drawing them Bristlebacks or something? I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, 3 mana on backfire, 3 mana on Bristleback, like what's actually happening?
The main reason I was thinking of Giant is if the Giant comes down, then you just go Scabs and then bounce it. The turn after, so...
That is fair, yeah.
This is a scary board, and I was even a little bit surprised. Of course, this would remove power from the board, so I understand why. But I would have even just eyed up bouncing the Shadow Step in the 4/4. this turn for Bunnyhoppor as well, just to have that easy assassinate available.
More bones to gnaw on.
So, last trade.
Has the 0 mana touch still to throw in there as well.
So 15 total this turn, I believe. At max. Could again shadow step the now the Spire bot maybe.
Just sit here. Stormwind needs me.
I do think that's one real strength of the deck is Shadow Step feels way more flexible in this than it does in some other, you know, historic rogue decks where you're really saving it for something specific.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
A weapon to push 6 over the course of 2 turns. Obviously nothing to sap. And he can just play the Spiral Bot, save the Shadow Step.
Yeah, if anything, like I'm most interested in that Shadow Step just being SI7 agent for 2 more damage overall.
Blood is my currency.
Here comes the healing note.
Absolutely not messing around this time. He had one incredibly slow turn last turn, but he is compensating for it, keeping his average nice and low. But that is tradable. So Battlegrounds Battlemaster is still a possibility and would still be lethal in this position.
Yeah, Bunnyhoppor can kill these without healing anything, right? He swings face with the weapon on his death rattle deals 3 to an enemy minion. That's guaranteed, so he's just going to load up again.
Just Shadow Step it back, play it again. All right.
Yeah. Full value town.
Seems legit.
Gets to play it, gets to re-stealth it, and I do wonder, is he ever at a point where he doesn't attack with the Spy Mistress? Never mind.
Woo.
Xbyzes just calls that one a day. Too much value, too much power, and I will say, Sol, we had questions about the lineup from Bunny. It's something a little bit different, but looks strong on paper, and now it's looked strong in the first match of the day, taking a 3-0 victory over Xbyzes. It was all against Warlock, but you mentioned how Conquest works at the start of the day. If you can get some decent matchups against one specific deck, well, your opponent has to win with that deck at some point, and Bunnyhoppor didn't give Xbyzes any opportunity. Huge way to kick off playoffs for Bunny here.
And again, like, Bunny isn't all in on that strategy. It's not like he just has to beat Warlock and his deck's 0% against everything else, right? Like, it's not a Monsanto strategy. He has a decent spread in this instance against basically everything that Xbyzes had available outside of the Garrote Rogue, which he banned, right? His decks are kind of equally good against Demon Hunter, Druid, and Warlock. So I think he, himself and Alan, who kind of had the same strategy, I can't believe I'm saying this. This could be the end of my career, Raven. I actually think the version that Bunny has, which takes out Garrote Rogue for Quest Rogue, actually plays the strategy better, because even though Garrote Rogue is a much, much better deck, it creates a weakness against Demon Hunter that doesn't have to exist in the lineup overall, which is then solved a little bit by Bunnyhoppor's Quest Rogue, if I'm going to trust Bunny in that matchup is favored against Demon Hunter, which